That's right. You can see the waves at the start probably a little greater than those down here at the finish because the water's got 2 kilometres to travel. Quick start from the South Africans. Little short stroke off, Greg.
Yeah, very short strokes from the South Africans. We now see them lengthening out as we have a look here at the big man Roel Brass and Mitchell Steenman in the Dutch pair. Real aggression on their faces as they try and get that pair up and away. And not a huge surprise to see New Zealand being slightly dropped off the start. We're used to seeing this sort of thing, and then they really settle into their pace. But everyone in the world's going to take them on, and the South Africans are taking them on the most at the moment.
Yeah, so it's South Africa in the distinctive green, gold and white singlets. They're in the white Philippi boat. The rest of the competitors in this rowing in the yellow German Empacher boats. But the South Africans, it's a new combination this year, Greg, and well, Lawrence Britton was in the 4 that won the C final 13th. Sean Keeling was in the pair that finished 6th. So they qualified for the Olympics, didn't have to go through the qualification regatta. But I think Brass and Steenman, well, that was a great chat. They were really concerned with Brass and Steenman yesterday. They wanted to get their legs really locked on and they wanted to get those blades in really quickly at the front end. We've just gone back to the South Africans, coached by Roger Barrow, but it was fascinating insight into their psychology, wasn't it, Greg?
We did have a really interesting chat with them, didn't we? So have a look here. Look at the South Africans with those straws that mark their length. So we just got away from the pitch. You can just see them. They're set up there to try and encourage them to make sure they row long, but we can see it is that Dutch pair who are working on really getting onto it, really getting the blade in and getting the work on quickly to get the boat up to speed. As we come through there, it looks like it's the Dutch, and then it's Great Britain, and then really the rest of the field pretty tight. And the New Zealanders looking pretty ominous in the middle of the field. Everyone knows what they've got, what they can deliver.
So, Greg, in the heat, I mean, the New Zealanders were 3rd at 500, but they were quite a way off. But they did 1:35, 1:36, so just a 1 second fade. And I'll tell you what, as we look at Eric Murray there, they then did an amazing 1:34 for the 3rd quarter. And, you know, we were chatting, as you know, with their coach, Noel O'Brien, today, and he said, look, they're a bit rusty, and really these guys know that the race is more competitive. The crews are coming back to them, and they know that they're not going to break the field till maybe sort of 1,500 metres, whereas they would have expected to do that at 1,100 metres in the 2 years before this. That's
right. We see New Zealanders with Noel Donaldson as their coach coming back into the field, and the long race, the headwind race, is probably going to help them.
Yeah, and it strikes me as we look there at Matt Tarrant from Oxford Brookes and Nathaniel Riley O'Donnell, his family here with his young sister watching him from the University of London, that Hodge and Reed could never get this close to the New Zealanders. I just wonder whether the New Zealanders had this thing about racing Hodge and Reed, that they were going to lead them whatever. But now they're more content to let the field go because they know they're faster than them anyway.
Well, that was back in the build-up to those London Olympics, wasn't it, when they were racing Hodge and Reed, the British pair. But, yeah, maybe there's confidence now from the New Zealand pair that they're prepared to sit in the field and move the boat the whole way down the course as quickly as they can. And as we think, it is going to be a longer than normal race today. So I think that really plays into their hand with their long strokes, well finished out every stroke, and they've really made it pay. Big second 500, just like you reported from their heat, Martin, with Britain now coming through into second and the Dutch in 3rd.
And I think we should report that this British pair racing here, Greg, they are not in the Olympic team at the moment. They came here expecting to race the pair of Innes and Sinclair, who seemed to be the selected pair. It looked like being a bit of a race-off, but these British guys don't even have a berth in the Olympic team. They're up here in 2nd place in a World Cup final. What do you make of that?
Well, we can see the New Zealand pair just how strong they are. Within the British team, there's all sorts of things going on. There's been a bit of illness within the team, so they've had to move the rowers around, use the rowers who might have been in the pairs to sub into other boats. So we can see, yeah, this British pair are trying to establish themselves as the fastest pair in Britain. I suspect there'll still be more trials need to go on back in England. But as we see him here, Matt Tarrant, Nathaniel Riley O'Donnell, making a few calls, trying to stay with the New Zealanders. If they can get a good silver medal here, it'll be very hard not to select them for Rio.
Yeah, the Dutch vying over there in lane 1. We don't get a good view of the crews on this side of the lake because the TV camera. There's Mitchell Steenman. His sister is the partner of Julien Bahane, Bowman in the Canadian quadruple just qualified for the Olympics, and he's just become an uncle. Little daughter Jade about 3 weeks ago. South Africans on this near side, still up there in the medal fight, maybe just one length down on the Dutch, but we ride with the head of the field, and thanks to Aaron Anderson, I assume you're from New Zealand, for pointing out that this day in 1953, the great New Zealander Sir Edmund Hillary knocked the bastard off, conquered Mount Everest, and I think that was the first New Zealander that Eric Murray alluded to when he won that first Olympic gold back in 2012, Greg.
And they're knocking off the rest of the field here, aren't they? Big lead for the New Zealand pair. This is what we expected, a big race for the silver medal with them right out there in front. And the South African pair have come back, trying to keep their length, trying to keep with it. The Australians dropped back out of the field, and the Spanish pair can't keep with the pace at the top of the picture. But here it is, the big race for the silver medal. The South Africans are coming back at the British, and I wouldn't count out the New Zealand, the team from Netherlands either.
I think my maths are going to let me down, Greg, but I reckon their fades are 142, 140, 137 or 138 for that third quarter. And interesting, you know, I think this year Hamish had a little bit of trouble in the New Zealand summer with his back, didn't do so much single sculling. So oddly enough, the two of them did more rowing in the pair than they would used to. Normally Hamish would be off in the single.
So we look at the South Africans, see that high rate of striking. They look a bit more of a snatch at the catch than I think the New Zealanders do. The New Zealanders look a little bit more relaxed out there. But the rest of the field really coming back at them. South Africans now looking like they're in second place. The British pair trying to respond, trying to see off the Netherlands pair to their right.
That's a great row from the South Africans. They took bronze in the first World Cup in Varese when they're over here. The British,
but I think the British have gone again. Yeah. I think the British should just come back. Made another move. They're counting it in. Probably 25 strokes to the line now.
Great push from the Oxford Brooks oarsmen. What a head-to-head between the British, and Brass and Steeman not out of it either, Greg, as they come into our view.
Yeah, and the British pair must be thinking the closer we get to the New Zealanders, the more we can prove we should be the boat in Rio. They're trying to hold off the rest of the field. New Zealand aren't even going to have clear water, are they, as they come to the line? It's New Zealand in first. It's a great race. Oh, it's too tight to call. I think the Netherlands might have come in with the last 10 strokes.
There. Yeah, and
we're going to have to take a wait, and we're going to have to wait and see what we get when we get a real slow-mo on that. But these two from New Zealand haven't had an easy day out at all.
Yeah, and well, Noel Donaldson, their coach, the Aussie who looks after this fabulous pairing, did say they were a little bit rusty, did admit, you know, off the plane, just a week here. They got enough to win the race, and if those splits are right, that fantastic third quarter was the one that really took them ahead of the field. Hamish, the more introverted, Eric with the wave, as per normal.
And let's have a look then at this. Who gets this medal? I think we can just about think that's the British, and then the Netherlands, and then South Africa. But it's gone up there as a photo finish, and I wouldn't really want to call it. But I think for all those crews, they'll be happy to be as close as they are to the New Zealanders. The real mission for them is to figure out how do you beat this pair, because no one wants to go to Rio thinking they're in the race for the silver and that the gold is out of sight.
Yeah, do you remember in 2011, like, they absolutely crucified the field, and Eric Murray got his binoculars out, like, at the finish and said, "Where are you, Hodge and Reed?" Well, you know, Hodge and Reed were the top two guys in the British team, and they're miles behind. These guys are the spares in the team. They're silver medal, and they're just like, what, 3 seconds behind? How do you explain that?
I think there's a few ways I could explain that. I think perhaps it's that the standards picked up by everyone else, or it could be the fact that the New Zealanders are just off the plane. They've only been here a week, and perhaps in 3 weeks' time, when they race in Poznan, they might look to put a bit more on the field. So there we see a confirmation that it's the Netherlands, the Dutch crew, that got the second place, and it was third for Riley O'Donnell and Tarrant, known as Noddy to his friends, the Bowerman.
I'm not being arrogant or anything, but I think that technical chat we had with them yesterday might have just done the job. I don't know what their coach Elon Myhorst will say about that, but you know, I reckon the Searle vibe was working its magic then, Greg.
Well, it was certainly quite interesting. We had a really long chat with the Dutch pair, and they really were figuring out what they needed to do differently. As we see the British pair here, and they should feel proud about the way they've performed. And then this is that Dutch pair. So much power Roel Brass has. looking to try and get his ergo score under 5 minutes 40. Such a big, strong man. And then Steenman in the stroke seat.
Steenman looked like that from the first stroke, didn't he? He had that look on his face.
Yeah,
it's hard to distinguish.
I guess what's interesting about them, I don't think it would have been what we said to them, but it's interesting that they're thinking about it. It's interesting that they're thinking about it. They're open enough to have a conversation to say, look, we're trying to work out how to beat these guys. What do you think? What would you do if you were the two of us?
I know, and I have to say, generally when we talk to rowers, mostly we just butt out and just say, you know, what are you doing well, and just keep doing that, which was your advice to them yesterday. But the Kiwis know the field might be getting closer to them. They're not taking anything for granted. And just on the surge, it's fantastic in rowing. You see, just as you come away from the finish, your hands move away, the boat tends to surge, and they just hit the line at the right point, the Dutch, didn't they?
It was the perfect moment for them, the Dutch. I think today, here at Lucerne, the difference between a bronze and a silver won't be such a big thing. The big one is the fourth place, and when it comes down to the summer in Rio, which is what we're all building up to, that's where it really matters. As we see confirmation there, Murray and Bond, the New Zealanders, business as usual with them at the top, but it's actually